Before New York had a subway, a man secretly built one under Broadway. In the late 1860s, the city was choking on its own success. Streets were crowded with carts, horses, pedestrians, and noise. Broadway, already one of the most important streets in America, had become a slow-moving river of traffic. Alfred Ely Beach looked at that chaos and imagined something almost impossible for the time. What if passengers could travel underneath the street, away from the mud animals? And congestion above Beach was not a railway tycoon in the usual sense. He was an inventor, publisher, and promoter of new technology. He helped run Scientific American, and he believed machines could solve problems that politics and habit left untouched. But there was a problem. Digging a railway under Broadway sounded outrageous. It meant disturbing powerful property owners, city officials, and existing transport interests. So Beach first gained permission for something much smaller and less threatening, a pneumatic mail tube. That was the official idea. A tube for messages. What appeared beneath the street became something far more ambitious. Around 1870, Beach opened a short underground demonstration railway known as the Beach Pneumatic Transit. It was not a full subway system, it was a single tunnel beneath Broadway, running only a short distance, but to visitors it felt like a glimpse of the future. There was a neat underground station, there was a passenger car, there were lamps, upholstery, and a sense of theatrical surprise. People descended below the city and found not a sewer, not a cellar, but a clean little railway hidden under the most famous street in New York. The strange detail was not just that Beach built it. It was that he built it as a persuasive argument. The tunnel was a working promise. It said this city does not have to remain trapped at street level. For a brief time, New Yorkers paid to ride back and forth through the tunnel. The journey was short, but the idea was enormous. Decades before the city opened its modern subway, one inventor had already shown that underground passenger travel was possible, but the hidden tunnel raised a larger question. If New York could move people beneath the street, why did it not simply expand the idea at once? The answer begins with the invention itself, because the strangest part was not that the subway existed. It was how the train moved. The first thing to know about Beach's subway is that it was not pulled by a locomotive. There was no ordinary engine at the front, no smoke-filled tunnel, no steam train dragging passengers through the dark Beach's railway was designed around a much stranger force, air. The car was moved by pressure and suction, pushed and pulled through the tunnel by a giant fan. This was not as random as it sounds. In the 19th century, pneumatic technology fascinated engineers and inventors. Cities experimented with tubes that used air pressure to send letters, parcels and messages at surprising speed. To many Victorians, compressed air felt clean, modern, and almost magical. Beach took that a smaller idea and enlarged it. Instead of sending paper through a tube, he wanted to send people through one. The demonstration tunnel under Broadway was built like a great cylinder. Inside it sat a passenger car shaped to fit the space at one end. A powerful fan could create pressure behind the car or draw air from ahead of it. In simple terms, the tunnel became a tube and the car became the object moving through it. For passengers, the experience must have felt carefully staged. They were not supposed to feel like they had entered an industrial experiment. They were meant to feel safe. The station was finished with a level of polish that suggested refinement rather than danger. Beach understood that the public had to be convinced emotionally, not only technically. That mattered because underground travel had an image problem. Beneath the city lay pipes, drains, foundations, damp earth and darkness. To sell a subway, Beach had to turn the underground from something suspicious into something elegant. His air-powered car helped him do that. It avoided the obvious problem of filling a tunnel with steam and smoke. It suggested a cleaner, quieter future below the streets. But the system also carried limits. A short demonstration could be controlled. A city-wide network would be far more complicated. Longer distances, multiple stations, changing traffic patterns, maintenance, ventilation, and construction rights would all have to be solved. Beach had proved that a car could move underground. He had not yet proved that New York could build an entire city beneath itself. That difference would decide the invention's fate. The machine worked as a demonstration. The harder question was whether a crowded, powerful, suspicious city would let it become a system. For a brief moment, New York had seen an underground railway, before it was ready to accept one Beach's pneumatic subway impressed visitors. It turned heads, it made newspapers and curious passengers pay attention, but inventions do not survive on wonder alone. They need permission, they need money, they need political backing, they need the city around them to cooperate. That was where Beach's dream began to narrow. Expanding the short tunnel into a real transit system meant digging under major streets and changing how New York moved. The surviving history suggests that Beach faced resistance from political interests and transport powers that did not want a disruptive new system beneath Broadway. The details are tangled, as they often are in city politics, but the broad problem is clear. A clever machine could not simply bypass the people who controlled the streets. Then came financial trouble. In the 1870s, economic panic shook investment across the United States. Big, expensive projects became harder to fund. A beautiful demonstration tunnel was one thing. A full underground railway was another. So the Beach pneumatic transit faded. The tunnel did not become the ancestor of New York's modern subway in any direct, simple way. Later underground rail planning followed other technologies and other political paths. When New York finally opened its subway system in the early 20th century, it was not powered by Beach's giant fan. It belonged to a different age of engineering. Yet Beach's little railway remains one of the strangest near misses in urban history. It was not a fantasy. It carried passengers. It existed beneath Broadway. It showed that the underground could be made public, clean, and even exciting. But it arrived before the city had the will, the structure, and the funding to turn it into normal life. That is why the story is more than a curiosity about an odd invention. It reveals a deeper truth about technology. Being early is not always enough. Working once is not the same as being adopted everywhere. Some inventions fail because they do not work. Others fail because they work in the wrong moment. Beach's pneumatic subway belonged to that second category. It was a glimpse of a future New York would eventually build, but not in the way its inventor imagined. Under the noise of Broadway, a strange machine briefly breathed air into a tunnel and carried people through a possible future. Then the future moved on without it.